Hi everyone, Andrew Ferguson from Kensington Wine Market here for your single sample session with the Berry Brothers and Ruadh Glenturret 2012 KWM Cask. This is a partial cask bottled partly for KWM, only 120 bottles. There was a larger portion of that was bottled for a local whiskey club. But overall, we took a little over half of the volume of it. It was a Puncheon, as I mentioned before, full-term maturation, bottled at 60.2% after 11 odd years or so. A little bit about the distillery. There is no distillery, Ruadh Mhor. This is Glenturret. It's peated Glenturret. Glenturret claims to be the oldest distillery in Scotland, and there is some disputing that, dating from 1775, though it was an illicit still. No license was granted on the site to distill until 1818. But that's not uncommon. A lot of distilleries operated under the table, as it were, until they were forced to take out a license or, I suppose, pay a fine or go to jail. Regardless, the distillery started under the name The Hosh, and it wasn't until 1875 that the distillery was renamed Glenturret. It shut down after World War I, 1923. It was actually completely dismantled. And it was only reopened in 1959 with bits and pieces, including the still and mash tuns coming from the Tullibardine distillery, which itself was not particularly old. So a little unusual that they were replacing their equipment very quickly. It came under the ownership of Remy Cointreau in 1981, which is something I didn't know or just didn't pick up on before. I thought Remy Cointreau's first foray into Scotch whiskey was with Bruichladdich when they purchased it from the people who revived Bruichladdich. But it actually was Remy Cointreau. They owned the distillery until 1990. It then became part of the Edrington Group. And then just a few years ago, it was sold to a consortium, one of the partners of which is Lalique Crystal. And so when you look at Glenturret whiskeys today, a lot of them are very premium, come in fancy bottles, and that's because of their partnership with Lalique. It's a very small distillery, rarely producing more than 400,000 liters a year. And in fact, I think it's typically down closer to 340, 350. It was the heart of, or one of the hearts of, the famous Grouse blend for a very long time. And peated Glenturret was actually made for famous Grouse, or for use as a component in the famous Grouse blend. It's called Ruadh Mhor, which translates to Big Red. Probably could look into where that name originated from, but I don't have it on me right now, so we're just going to leave it there. But that's not why you're here. You're here to taste the whiskey with me. So let's pour ourselves a little taste. This is from our friends Berry Brothers and Ruadh, who are an independent bottler. They're also a London-based wine merchant. Started out as a coffee merchant in 1695, so they're quite old. They've been at number 3 St. James Street ever since they founded. They do have a lovely shop around the corner now on the Pall Mall, but you can still go and see the original premise, which is leaning. The floor is on about a 15-degree angle because of a fire and the water damage. There's pockmarks out front from where a bomb landed in World War II, which is quite cool. And one of my favorite useless bits of information, just around the corner from Berry Brothers and Ruadh, there's a plaque, because for the few short years that Texas was an independent country, they couldn't afford an embassy on the Pall Mall, which is the big, flashy, diplomatic part of London. Very, very posh and expensive real estate. So they had an embassy in an office in the building that Berry Brothers and Ruadh is in, which is an interesting little fact. To the whiskey. Mentioned before, distilled in 2012, matured in a sherry Puncheon for 10 or 11 years, probably 10, but could be up closer to 11, bottled at 60.2%. This is not a finish, it's full-term maturation in sherry. And when you get to the nose on this, it's nutty, oily. There's something in here that reminds me of one of my favorite non-Scotch spirits, which is mezcal. You've got these nice volatile acids. It's smoky. There's something slightly medicinal in there too. Tons of peanut. Reminds me of like spicy Mexican peanut salsas, if you ever had those before. Little does a lot in the case of that particular type of salsa. And then going into like vegetal, grassy, malty tones, which is not surprising for the age. Loads of licorice and fennel. And then you're starting to see some of those sherry tones come in, the dark fruits, chocolate, leather, tobacco. Let's go ahead and give it a taste, shall we? On the palate, It's rich, fruity, spicy. Those sherry tones really come through, but so does the smoke. It's not an Isla peat. It's not an Isla smoke. It doesn't have that really sort of maritime, seafoody edge to it. This is clearly more of a Highland peat. It's a bit muddier, a bit earthier, mossier, but it works really well with the sherry. I mean, that's a good combo. Some of you might remember we had an awesome blended malt, probably teaspooned malt from Elements of Isla, the peat and sherry, which was just phenomenal. This is sort of going in that direction. You've got that Christmas cake chocolate, dark fruits, and then balancing that nice peat note. It's creamy. The smoke kind of reminds me of like mesquite and hickory smoke. Really going into those barbecue territories flavor-wise, but it's lighting up flavor sensors all over my mouth. If you're a fan of peated malts or Isla whiskey, I think this is going to be your jam. If you're not, it's probably not, because it's both like big sherry, big peat, and high alcohol, 60.2. But on the note of the alcohol, I find it's very well integrated. That's something we look for when we're bottling our single casks, is that the alcohol is not too high, it's not too sharp, it's not too rough, and it drinks really well at 60.2%. Only 120 total bottles of this available, because we bought a little, I think around 300 total between the club and the store. So it's not going to last forever, but it is a great whiskey. I hope you're enjoying it. If you have any questions about it, or if you want to look up more information, there's lots on our website. And until next time, enjoy your little wee tasting of the Berry Brothers and Ruadh Mhor Peated Glenturret 2012 from Kensington Wine Market. Slanch.